that we're now being live streamed. Is that correct? Thank you, Alec. Well, this meeting of the Planning Committee, Tuesday, 21st July 2026 at the Council offices in Market Harborough, is being recorded and live streamed. Members and officers must use the desk microphones in order for this to work. There can only be 2 microphones in addition to the chairman's that can be on at the same time. I just remind all members and officers to either switch off their mobile phones or have them on silent, please. We're not expecting any fire drill this evening, so if the fire bell does go, it'll be for the real thing. Fire exits are through that door or through this door. And please make your way, if it comes to it, to the meeting point at the top end of the Mill Hill car park. I just want to say a word about the fact that planning applications are sometimes controversial and emotive for those affected by the decisions made by this committee. Everyone present is reminded the council will not tolerate any abusive or aggressive behaviour towards the staff or indeed the members or any visitors who are attending the meeting. If there is any inappropriate behaviour, which is highly unlikely in my experience, but if there is, they will be required to leave the meeting as well as the building. Before we start on the agenda proper, I would like to ask members and officers just to introduce themselves, starting with Councillor Sarfas, please.
Hi, I'm Councillor Martin Sarfas, Lutterworth East Ward. Hello.
Good evening, Councillor Johnny Austin, Fleckney Ward.
Hello, Councillor Amanda Burrell, Thurmby and Houghton Ward.
Councillor Simon Galton, Thurmby and Houghton Ward.
I'm Alex Watton. I'm the Democratic Services Officer and I'm clerking the meeting this evening.
Thank you, Alec. In the avoidance of doubt, I'm Councillor Neil Bannister and I chair the Planning Committee.
Adrian Eastwood, Head of Development Management.
Christy Ingalls, Strategic Growth Officer.
Louise Finch, Team Leader, Development Management.
Good evening, everyone. David Atkinson, Director of Planning.
Hi, Councillor Moder for Bilsden and Tilton Wards.
Good evening, Councillor Peter Scott, Glen Ward. Thank you.
Good evening, Councillor Robin Holly, Kibworth Ward.
Thank you, Councillor Hollick. And we also have attending virtually David Gill, the lawyer who will be advising the Planning Committee as and when Mr. Gill is attending virtually. Just want to double check, Mr. Gill, that you can hear us in this room.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, we'll now proceed with the agenda. Item 1 is to receive any apologies for absence. I have received 1, and that's from Councillor Worrell. Are there any others? There are none. Moving on to item 2 on the agenda, declarations of members' interests. Are there any members that would wish to make any declaration of anything on this agenda, please? No, thank you very much. Item 3 on the agenda is to consider the draft minutes of the Planning Committee that was held on the 16th of June 2026. They have been circulated and I wonder if anybody has any comment on them before we can propose and accept them. No, can I ask for a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Austin, and seconded by Councillor Scott. So those are now accepted. Item 4 on the agenda is to consider any matters that have been referred to council by the to be considered by the planning committee, but there are no references. Excuse me, there are no references. So we'll move on now to the planning applications proper. The first of those is at agenda item number 5 at page 9 in the package of papers that members have. This is application 25/00291/VAC, land at Uppingham Road in Bilston. The presenting officer will be Adrian Eastwood. So over to you, Adrian.
Thank you, Chairman. So this application is an application to vary a condition, in effect, a previously approved layout. And the result of this is approved is actually for 44 dwellings. You'll see from the paperwork there's been previous consents on the site, and hence the application is to vary the condition for the layout and the number of dwellings. So Uppingham Road, Bilston. This is the proposed layout and site, and you can see the access just off the Uppingham Road to the southeast corner of the site. There's also provision for pedestrian access to this will be Long Lane, Bilston. So the provision for pedestrian access in there. Just got a selection of the various proposed house types. On my screen on the left, I've got photographs of the site, which sort of slopes up towards the A47. So it's a fairly good slope on the site. And on the right there, there's the point of access. Obviously, that would be upgraded to vehicular access, probably made up.
Excuse me. Yes.
Okay, try that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so as I said, it's just to the north of the village, Bilston, south of the A47. The outline permission was granted back in 2018. Actually, subsequently, there was a reserved matters for 35 dwellings approved in 2022. The development has actually begun on the site. As I mentioned, the vehicular access is to the southeast corner. There's some houses there, I think it's 9 and 11, Uppingham Road. And then one further property in the corner there, existing properties. There's a paddock that separates from other properties. The conservation area in Bilston is just to the south here, and I think there's a listed building within the report. It says about 80 metres away on Long Lane. Within the paperwork, you'll see, I think it's page 18, there's a comparison between the approved plans and this proposal. Yeah, you'll see that on page 18. You'll also see within the reports there's change in house types and mixed sizes. I think it's probably gone away from 1-bed units and bigger, more than 4-bed units to a greater mix of 2- and 3-bed units. And certainly when you compare it within the committee papers, you can see the change in the layout that's put forward there. So it's had a previous consent, effectively complies with planning policy. There's an extract again within the committee report that shows you the neighbourhood plan. It's effectively within the limits to the development of the Bilston neighbourhood plan. The one issue new that's particularly cropped up is the viability of the development and section 106 contributions. You'll see that set out in the report. There's been some to and fro with the council as appointed expert as well. Ultimately, that's come down to the viability of this means there's only a certain amount of contribution. It's about £200,000, and it's set out in the report that that would be available towards section 106. But as a consequence, there would not be affordable housing, for example. But given the policy position, the situation, it's a development that's begun, the change, an increase in units will benefit the council's land supply. Does not have any harm to the character and appearance of the area compared to the approved development. Taking all those things into account, it's recommended for approval, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one speaker in respect of this application, and that's Lee Staniforth, the agent. Mr. Staniforth, if you'd like to come to the speakers table. You have 3 minutes. There is a button where the microphone is. If you could press that, and your time will begin as soon as you start speaking. And excuse me, if I could just ask you to remain at the table after you've spoken, just in case there's any questions. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Staniforth.
Thank you. Evening, Chair, members.
Sorry, sir, could you put the microphone on?
Could I what, sorry?
Turn the microphone, there's a button in the middle.
Do what? It says it. It is. How's that? Evening, Chair, members. My name's Lee Staniforth, Staniforth Architects. We're the agents for the applicant. This application varies the consented scheme on this allocated site, and I'd like to briefly cover why and what we've amended, and the 2 issues I know matter, mix and viability. The market has changed since the original approval back in 2018, 2022. Demand for large 4 and 5 bedroom homes has weakened. What buyers actually want and what the district's evidence base identifies is 2 and 3 bedroom homes. As your officers set out at paragraph 618 and to 621, the revised mix is a closer fit to the housing needs assessment than the original consented scheme. 4+ bed houses fall from 31% to 18% on the Hedner target, and 2 and 3 bed rise to over 80%. Although dwellings proposed increase from 35 to 44, these homes are smaller, so the overall built floor area is broadly the same as the approved scheme. And on bungalows, a concern raised locally, provision increases from 9 to 10, achieved with level step-free access throughout despite an 18-metre fall across the site. Neighbourhood plan. Some representations suggest 35 was a cap. The allocation policy itself set a minimum of 35. Your officer's report confirms that point. The principle of more homes on this allocated commenced site is sound, and no conflict with the neighbourhood plan is found. Viability. Build costs have risen substantially since consent was originally granted, and this site has carried exceptionally unforeseen additional burdens. A full archaeological programme including a near half-site 1 metre strip now completed and discharged, and a new mains drain requirement along Bilston's main street. The viability position hasn't been taken on trust. The council's own independent assessors, Aspinall Verde, have tested it. A policy compliance scheme shows a deficit of around £2 million. The scheme before you supports a £200,000 contribution, which the applicant has agreed, and importantly, with a review mechanism. So if viability approves, the council captures that uplift. No one's walking away from this development with a windfall. Technical picture. The lead local flood authority have tested and revised drainage strategy in detail, supports the application. Highways have withdrawn their objection with detailed matters handled through the section 278 process. All statutory consultees are resolved. This is an allocated site, lawfully commenced, with an officer recommendation.
30 seconds remaining.
Delivering smaller homes and bungalows in line with the parish's own requirements, allowing for residents wishing to downsize and stay in Bilston. I'd ask you to support your officer's recommendation. And if I have time, one final point. The district cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, as you're constantly told. What's before you tonight is the version of this scheme that actually gets built. 44 homes counting towards that supply, delivered now rather than a consent that sits. Every home here is identified as needed, and
that is your time
paused to start.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanford. Just remain there. I'll just double check with the members whether they have any questions of you. Councillor James.
Yeah.
There is all the parking's in line with all policy requirements. It's pretty identical to the consented scheme. We've sought to keep the layout exactly the same where we can. So yeah, we believe there's adequate parking provision. Yeah.
Councillor Austin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good evening. I noticed from the issues which were raised by local people. There still remains questions of the pathway at the top of Long Lane running into the village, purely because of it's a blind bend coming out from that into the main village, and also the risk to pedestrians because the pavement is very limited. Has that been actually looked at and attended to by the?
I'm sorry, I missed the first bit. I got the bit about the pavement.
Yeah, the top of Long Lane. It's because it's on a blind bend. It poses risk to pedestrians. That's what it says here. Is there's no pavement when exiting the path onto the road.
Yeah, Long Lane's a very rural road, and there's no highways access out there. It's just a pedestrian route, so the cars are taken out onto the other side. Is that what you mean?
Well, it's just obviously, has there been any provision made for the safety of pedestrians, considering the state of it as it currently is?
So there is a pedestrian link outside onto the main access,
Right.
and we were keen to explore and work with your planners to ensure a pedestrian lead onto Long Lane. We believe it's safe. It's been assessed as being safe. It is a very narrow road, so there's no provision for additional pavements.
Right.
It's a very narrow track, but of course the top of Long Lane's only really serving two or three properties right at the top. So we believe it to be safe, and in fact they're coming out straight onto Long Lane and not where the cars come round the bend.
Right, is at the bottom there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Salfas.
Aye. On page 16 regarding flood risk, there was a meeting 2025 with residents to confirm drainage work on site. So has that been totally agreed that will happen, so it will stop when you build those 46 houses, that there will be no flooding and that there will be proper drainage?
We believe so. Our engineers have gone through extensive negotiation with all consultees. We're very aware of the flood issues that have happened and the local commentary on water discharging down Long Lane currently, well, previously, and the applicant spent a lot of time seeking to resolve this and a lot of expense and did this, and we hope to everyone's satisfaction. There hasn't been any other comeback since, and the new proposals seek to take that all into account, and as I say, the technical consultees are happy with what's been proposed. I'm not a technical consultant, but they're satisfied.
Supplementary, Councillor Salfas.
And how has the water board given you confirmation that that's okay and that's what they agree with your plan for the thing, and you've got that in writing?
We do, yeah. All statutory consultees are approved and in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Scott. I think you've got an issue with your microphone, Councillor Scott.
Apologies. Yeah, sorry, I'll say that again in case you didn't hear. There appears to be quite a reduction in green spaces within the development. Were you happy that was one of the viability affected the green space allowance?
Yeah, no, understood. Yeah, no, we don't believe there is a big reduction in green space.
As you come into the development, there was quite a large triangular area that's no longer there. That's got two houses in it.
Yes, so we reviewed that in detail in terms of the net developable area of the whole site, and did studies on what was originally approved, certainly along the northern part of the site and other areas. So whilst it's moved around, we believe the overall green area is similar to what was approved.
Supplementary questions, sorry, Chair. You've changed the design quite considerably into cul-de-sacs as well, I noticed.
Yes. So
the reason for that?
Yeah, we tried to maintain the same layout as much as we could. The site is tricky. It falls 18 metres across and at its deepest diagonal. we're trying to maintain as best we can level access for the smaller, for level access is throughout where we can, which we have done. The deliverability of this site is tight. We've tried to eliminate as many retaining walls as we can, and to do that, we had to work really hard with the engineers to get these layouts to work to eliminate those kind of retaining walls.
Sorry, just could you bear with me just one more, just a tiny.
One more, Councillor Scott.
Sorry about in terms of the viability, if I see in the documentation that if it does improve, the market has improved, that you may be able to give more to the £200,000. Do you see that as a possibility, or is it in the current state you think it will still be?
I mean, I'm no viability expert. No. Do I see house prices going down and going up and build costs going down? No. Not really.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we understand that point, Mr. Staniforth. Councillor Hollick.
Coming back to the point of safety and Councillor Osling's comments, you are going to increase this site by at least another 18 vehicles. And I'm trying to understand how you are going to make that work when you consider that the average is 2.4 cars per family. And you've already mentioned narrow lanes and things like that. And I have a real question about safety and how you're going to deal with that. Because on a Monday morning when everybody's going to go to work and you've got all of these people trying to come out of this little estate, and I understand I'm all for 2 and 3 bedroom houses, but I am quite concerned about
that. Was there a question in there? Councillor Hollick, I appreciate your speech there. Thank you.
I can comment if you'd like me to.
If you'd like to come back, Mr. Staniforth, yes.
No, fully understand. But we are seeking to increase the number of 2 and 3 beds. So a 2-bed house would typically have less car parking than a 4 or a 5-bed house. Similarly, bungalows for downsizing generations, less traffic movement. And of course, this has all been analysed with Highways Department.
I think we've not quite exhausted the questions. Councillor James would like to ask another.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just looking through, there's a comment on page 22 that the officers have advised that the internal road layout is not suitable for adoption. Could you just give us a comment on that, and how that, if that's the case, and we continue, how will that will be dealt with on the development?
Yeah, work very hard with that.
What's the problem of adoption, Lee? Yeah.
It's the entrance to the site and the gradient of the entrance into the site, and the reality is that probably the consented scheme wouldn't have been adoptable either. It's very tight as you come into the site, so we just couldn't quite meet the standards, the adoptable standards. The whole rest of the whole design of the site is to adoptable standards. It's purely down to how we get into the site, and as such, it will be a managed company that looks after the maintenance of the site.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Well, I've got a question. Thank you, Councillor James, arising out of your question, and that is, to your satisfaction, are the refuse collection vehicles able to access the site as well as emergency vehicles?
Absolutely, yeah. As I say, it's all done to adoptable standards and layout and dimensions. It's just to do with we just can't quite meet the gradients on the access. But everything else has been engineered to work. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. I'll just have a quick look around the table. It doesn't look like there are any other questions, so thank you very much. So I'll let you sit back in the public gallery and pass the discussion now to members. It's clear from the questions raised you've had a good read of this report. Would anyone like to start the discussion? Well, in the absence of anyone wanting to start the discussion, oh, no, we have people. I was just going to launch myself, but there we go. Now, I think I saw Councillor Galton first. Councillor Galton, would you like to?
Well, thank you, Chairman. I was waiting for see if Councillor Moder wanted to go first as the ward member. Yes. Obviously, we're looking at the increase from 35 to 44. We've got to focus on what the differences are and the changes. Notwithstanding what's been said, is it still acceptable? Does it meet the standards and so on? I do have a number of concerns which I'll go through. I think firstly, starting with highways, it's right to say that highways did initially object, and their main concern, and the last bit of questioning about the access from Councillor James, they were concerned that at one point the footway on the east side had been removed, and I suspect that was much to do with what's been said about the difficulties of the access from Uppingham Road. And if you go and look at it, it is quite narrow and quite steep, and there's properties on both sides, and it's currently a farm access. And then later Highways withdraws that because they've put the footway back. But looking at the plan in front of us this evening, if you blow that up, the footway stops or appears to stop. It just peters out. I'll be asking Adrian if you could comment on that. So when they say they put the footway back, my hope was that it would put the footway right back to Uppingham Road where it had been on the previously consented scheme. But it appears to just stop, and it doesn't provide a continuous link from the highway. So that's my first concern. The second concern is in relation to flooding, and it wasn't entirely the applicant's fault, because I believe the archaeology people insisted that they soil stripped the site after the previous work. Immediately that was done in winter. The site flooded, all the surface water ran off into Long Lane, and this authority, the county authority, the parish council, and myself as the county member had to do a lot of work with the applicant, and to be fair, the applicant was very accommodating to try and address this, because it kept happening and happening. And actually is a lesson about whether it's wise to soil strip before you develop. And it was very fortunate there was a condition on relating to construction, dealing with stormwater during construction. I hadn't seen that we'd done, but we had put that on. But nevertheless, you'll understand through that, Chair, that a lot of concerns remain that whatever happens in the future isn't liable to flood. And one of my concerns is, if you look at the two plans on page 18 in front of us, in order to get the increase in, the top left of the site, let's see, houses will now go pretty much to the top left corner of the site, whereas in the original approved plan, that wasn't the case. To achieve that, they took out one of the stormwater swales, one of the ponds. And that was addressed in a technical note that's there on the website. And it acknowledges that the reason they've done that is to get the increased numbers in and the layout. Now, they say that will be okay because the way it's all been worked out and the finished floor levels and so on and so forth. But if there is a problem, it will be okay because the water will go into the highway storm drains. Okay. Now, the problem with that is that it appears that the LFA is working on the basis that the roads are going to be adopted. But as we've heard, they're not. And I do wonder very seriously if the LLFA, if they know it's not going to be adopted, might have a different view about that, because who is going to be responsible, other than the residents, ultimately on private management, for the storm drains? Because it seems to me the maintenance and size and the way they're designed and so on and so forth going to be very, very important if that swale is going to be taken out. But in overall terms, I have got concern about removing one of the stormwater ponds, given the history of flooding on the sites. That's my sort of second concern about it. And then finally, Chair, it's this issue of the Section 106, because it all amounts to about 2 million, but we're actually only going to secure 200,000. It's not just a little reduction, it is a massive reduction. So just looking through that list, there'll be no contributions to libraries, no contribution to community facilities, no contribution to indoor sport, no contribution to off-site POS, and crucially, no contribution to future maintenance, which is a very large sum of money. and, as we've heard, no affordable housing on the site at all. That is a significant change in what we approved some years ago. We understand it's to do with current market and build and all the rest of it. But, you know, who's going to provide those facilities for these residents? I very much doubt whoever comes after us is going to be able to do that in the new county unitary authority, and I very much doubt Bilston Parish Council is. It is sizable sums of money. We would only be able to meet the basic education and healthcare and a little bit of money for wheelie bins. So I'll leave it at that, Chair, see what other members think. But it really does concern me that we are being asked to forgo a lot of Section 106 money because the site is no longer viable, and it's not viable on 35, and I assume it's not viable on 35, but it appears to certainly not be viable on 44. And I do have considerable concerns about us foregoing that and what then happens in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Galton. I'll keep the discussion going and ask officers to comment as we near the end of the discussion. Councillor James, you had your hand up. Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Scott.
Okay. Looking at the, listening to what Councillor Galton was saying with regard to flooding and the possibilities of the removal of sort of swales and storm drains, I link that into adoption. I can only look at other such developments that are now actually finished. One particularly in Great Glen, where I am, where the roads are still not adopted, and it has been an enormously difficult job to actually persuade the actual developer to come back and look at serious problems, and it's gone backwards and forwards between the various parties that are concerned with it, the LNFA, the actually harbour planning itself. So I'm very concerned that that hasn't been that the adoption will not be considered at this stage, and whether there should have been more work done to try and get it past the post. What has actually stopped it? We've heard a vague reference to it's too steep or there's a sharp turn, but I'm sure these things aren't insurmountable.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sarfas.
Concern about the flooding, and that there needs to be more measures made sure that these houses are not going to be flooded on this land. I'm seeing actual things said, but not actual measures that are properly guaranteed that they're actually going to do them. And I know obviously within the laws that they have to do that, but there still is a concern over flooding of those houses. And obviously building houses is important, putting them on land where they're not going to be flooded. Otherwise, the people that's going to live in them is going to be a disaster for them, and we don't want that to happen.
No. Well, thank you, Councillor Moder.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's one of my wards, as Councillor Galton said, and it's interesting to hear what everyone thinks and sort of has to say about this application, because it's been in the pipeline a long time, and there's been a lot of things going on with the site. And as the agent actually referred to, he said two things which were very important. One, the site is a tricky site. It's always been a tricky site. It remains a tricky site, and I think it's going to be extremely tricky going forward for anyone who decides to live on that new development. Secondly, he said the deliverability is tight. And yes, I agree. It has been, and it will be, and it will continue to be tight. I respectfully disagree with the consultees, the statutory consultees. I don't understand how if cars are parked up, how a refuse vehicle or an emergency vehicle is going to get into that site, because as we know, we may all have car parking facilities outside our house and garages, but no one actually cares to use them, and they park all over the place. And my main concern would be if anything was to happen on that site and there was a problem getting in, I don't think I'd be able to live with myself or sleep soundly, knowing that we're approving something that may lead to a fertility like that. Secondly, I kind of feel that the extraction of this pond that Councillor Galton has referred to, it just doesn't make any sense to me, because that site is renowned for problems with being waterlogged and flooding. And Long Lane, we've had a lot of problems in the past. And we've got video footage, we've got photos, you know, we had a meeting about it. It's just been horrendous. It's been awful for the residents of Bilston. And if we're taking away something that is supposed to deter that and to help protect, it just doesn't, I mean, I don't understand it. It just doesn't make sense, logical sense to me. And then there's the non-adoption of the road. Again, it's, there seems to be a technicality where Councillor Galton was sort of saying that if those things were to add up, would it then come to a different conclusion? You know, would the consultees then sort of look at it slightly differently? I don't know, but I just feel that as it is, a 25% increase from 35 to 44, I just feel it's asking quite a lot from my residents, who have been absolutely amazing up to now and being very sort of lenient with what was going on and what is going on up there. I mean, that's basically what I'd like to say about it, and I'll hear what others have to. But thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you. Councillor Hollick.
The concern that I have is that in order to make this site just, profitable, there's a lot of unanswered questions, like flooding, like where is this pond gone, safety on the site, getting into the site. And I just feel that it's not been thought through enough to have these extra houses and the impact it's having on the site, the environment and the people around it. And I think it's left me with quite a lot of questions.
Thank you. I note in the conclusions there are no technical constraints that have been reported. If I can ask Adrian to make comment on particularly what Councillor Galton was saying in relation to the lead local flood authority's view as to whether or not it would be affected by the non-adoption of the highway. Does it have any particular effect that this committee should take into account?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bannister. So I picked up three particular points there. Path, drainage, the swale in particular in section 106. So I'll just pick up on those 3 points. I think that came out in the discussion. So the path to the east of the highway, I can't blow the plan up further. There's a slightly better scale plan on page 42 of the report. It looks there that the footway is on the west side of the road down to Uppingham Road. It only goes halfway down towards Uppingham Road on the east side. So that's the evidence I've got. Obviously, notwithstanding that, the Highway Authority have no objection to this scheme. And the point about similar to drainage, the point about it may not be adoptable for particular point of access, for example, steepness maybe. Regardless of that, it's acceptable from a highway safety point of view to the Highway Authority, and non-adopted estates, if you like, do exist. I understand not so common in Harbour District, but elsewhere in Leicestershire. The swale, yeah, I mean, Councillor Galton referred to it. I, as it happens, have the technical note that's online. And I think the technical note would have ultimately led to the local authority agreeing this scheme. And I'll just read out the conclusions of the technical note, just so members are informed by that, but this is available to look at. The conclusion was, this is the applicant advice, but as I understand it, it's agreed by the lead local authority, which doesn't object to this scheme now. And their conclusion at this point, the applicant's agent, was the northern swale was removed due to constraints within the site. Nevertheless, the site continues to accept off-site flows from the north, allow natural infiltration through existing soils, safely convey excess runoff via formal drainage and highways, and provide defined exceedance routes away from residential properties. And along with that, and again, it's not on the PowerPoint, but there's online, there's surface water drainage scheme plans, and they show actually what Mr. Sunnyforth described, a significant improvement down into the village of the drainage scheme. But ultimately, the flood authority, if you like, has signed off. In terms of maintenance, this is a recurring theme throughout the district, of course. I'd have to say I don't know whether that would change their advice, but ultimately there's a technical solution, however it's to be maintained, whether that be by public authority or management company, which seems likely in this case. I've got no reason to think whichever way it's maintained would lead to a different advice from the flood authority in terms of flood risk, for example. But I get the general point, because obviously across the district there's been potential incidences, worries that private maintenance may have caused, may have featured in the flood risk regulation 19 surveys. But on this site, flood authority, happy with it. I've got no reason to think the advice would be different if it were maintained in a particular way. Section 106, there is the clawback mechanism. Ultimately, it's evidence-based, so there's been an awful lot of to and fro, and you'll see that within the reports. And effectively, that's come down to limited contributions, and the difficulty we have. You'd assume, therefore, that it's likely that the smaller scheme, fewer units, may not be viable, and if we need to deliver development, contribution to the land supply, unfortunately, from the officer's point of view, there has to be some compromise, and on this basis, evidence-based. And the committee just has to take a view on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Councillor Colton?
Just go back to the viability in the 106 issue, because I'm just wondering if the site's not viable, then we have a 106 that we've signed, but the site hasn't come forward because it's not viable. Presumably there will be an option for the developer to come back to seek to renegotiate that 106, take out some of the costs in that. Affordable housing, I guess, would be a major contribution, would be likely candidate. So I'm just wondering if, there are concerns about going for these additional houses and the impact that has on the site and what you're having to do to squeeze those in. Whether there is an option that officers could be asked to renegotiate the 106 for the 35, whether that might alleviate some of the applicant's problems.
To come back on that, Adrian.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is we've got to make a decision on what's been put before us, these units. I've made an assumption that the 35 may not be viable, but regardless of that and whether that was more work on that, the applicant's applied and is entitled to an answer on this particular scheme, I think. So I do get that's quite a common sense approach, but the reality is it's what's before us.
Okay. No, we've got a few hands going up. Councillor Austin, I suppose it's yours first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In my own ward, there are developments where have not been adopted by the county, even though from outset the county said, well, we've got no aversion to this, and then they haven't done for whatever reason during the development. And I think one straight away now where the roads haven't even been completed yet. They've still got storm drains sitting up, nearly a foot above the road surface. So if they're being told from outset on the planning that it's unlikely that it would be adopted, then surely that should be a red flag to us.
Okay, thank you. Councillor James.
Yeah, Councillor Austin has covered the main point, but I'm very uncomfortable about the lack of adoption. I've seen over the years many examples where this problem comes back to haunt the residents, and I think it's very unsatisfactory. I think infrastructure is incredibly important on any developments that we take forward, including the consideration of maintenance of the infrastructure. So I'm very uncomfortable with it, Chairman. Thank you.
Could I just ask a question before I bring in David? What was the issue of adoption a live one when the first permission was granted in 2018? Presumably the gradients that were making it so difficult now existed then.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know the answer, and it wouldn't be unusual on a site where it's finely balanced. The detail becomes more apparent as the work's done, I suppose, the highway design, etc. I don't know the answer to when 2018, but it wouldn't surprise me when more intelligence and surveys, etc. are done, that it becomes more apparent.
Okay. David, did you want to make comment?
Just to say, Chairman, as Adrian said, it's not unusual for sites to be not adopted and maintained in a private way. The planning advice from the Highway Authority is that they are not objecting to the scheme. The Local Flood Authority, as I understand it, doesn't object to the scheme. The maintenance is a slightly, it's not necessarily the main advice from the Highway Authority, the Lead Local Flood Authority. So the committee probably, in my view, ought to be considering the planning advice and whether the Highway Authority have concerns, and they don't, and the Lead Local Flood Authority don't have concerns either. So I just put that on the table, Chairman, that it's a scheme that's not giving rise to any statutory authority concerns.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that is an issue. These are the technical experts that are making the recommendations within the report, which planning officers rely on, and to some extent we should rely on. Does anybody else wish to make any further point during the discussion? Councillor Scott.
Perhaps Adrian might be able to answer it. I'm looking at 6.6.54. We've gone over it before. I know Simon, Councillor Galton, I do apologise, mentioned it about the viability. What is our review mechanism for S106 in considering whether or not do we do that on a 6 monthly basis? Do we ask the developer at certain stages of the development where we are with the with viability and whether there is any uplift?
I'll ask Dave Gill if he's listening and if he's had any experience of it. I would have thought on a scheme of 30, 40 units, you could probably have one single review mechanism fairly far down the line, 30 units or something. You could see how it's developing at that point. So it can be done, although we've heard from Lee Staniforth, in all fairness and good faith, thinks it's unlikely, but a review mechanism could be done, and it would rely on a submission from the applicant and probably a verification process by the council. I don't know if Dave's had any experience of it, wants to add anything.
Yeah, we'll bring you in now, Dave.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with what Adrian says. Normally you would have a clause within section 106 which would set a trigger point at which the viability assessment would be conducted. The developer would provide the information to the council, and then the council will independently verify that information and then make a determination. And then there's normally a period of negotiation. It's not always we want X and the developer gives it. There'll be some negotiation around that, taking into account the site, the development, the sales, etc. But it is perfectly feasible to put it in the section 106 agreement.
Okay, thank you. Right, I think we have exhausted the discussion. So we've got an application before us. Just to remind committee members, it's an application essentially to vary planning permission granted a few years ago. This is seeking a variation for consent from 35 to 44 dwellings. There are the arguments that will boost local land supply. There are no technical constraints. There is a mix and design of houses that are acceptable. Number of concerns, however, have been expressed by committee members as we discuss this report this evening. I'll look around the table to see if anyone has a proposal to make at this stage. No. In that case, I will make the proposal, and that proposal is to follow the officer's recommendation to approve the application. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Burrell?
Second it to test the committee.
Yeah, I'm grateful. Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak before we take this to the vote? No? Okay. Alec, our clerk, will take the vote in accordance with the Constitution. It has to be a recorded vote. So over to you, Alec, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as you have just outlined, it'll be a recorded vote, and for the benefit of everyone present, I will call each councillor by their surname, and they will state whether they are for, against, or abstaining. And just to confirm, the proposal before committee is to approve, as per the report. So, Councillor Austin.
Against.
Councillor Bannister.
For.
Councillor Burrell.
For.
Councillor Galton.
Against.
Councillor Hollock. Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor Moder.
Against.
Councillor Sarfas.
Against.
And Councillor Scott.
Against.
So the result of that is 2 votes in favour, 7 against.
The proposal to approve then fails. Is there any other? Yep, sorry, before.
Could I ask for some advice regarding if we were to defer the application, to ask the officers to go back and look to negotiate changes to the scheme that also address the viability of it, to see if we could get a more viable scheme on a reduced number of dwellings, and obviously that would impact on the Section 106 contributions. So it would be a deferment to do that rather than an outright refusal.
Adrian, you want to make comment?
Yes, thank you. I just not wanting to that obviously it's for the committee and Councillor Galton's given some input there, but yes, I'm obliged to give a bit of advice, I think, and I would concur with a defer would be better than an alternative in this case. Obviously, there's a risk here. If we don't make a decision, the applicant may appeal non-determination effectively, but I think the best mitigation from the officer point of view is probably to defer and to look at 3 particular issues, which are try to gain more information on the access, the footway, and the adoption constraints, challenges, if there's any safety issue there. Clarification of the drainage, whether the potential private maintenance impacts the legal local flood authority advice, and maybe some understanding of the drainage improvements through the High Street, which Mr. Staniforth referred to, and I've got a plan, so a bit more information on the significance of that, I think. And Section 106, as Councillor Galton said, by all means, we can go back and see if there's any changes to the scheme that can alter that. I have no reason to think it can, but obviously it's not unreasonable to try that. So I've got kind of 3 issues, but ultimately, it's, as Councillor Galton said, it's for committee.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Moder.
Thank you, Chair. I'd be very happy with that, to defer.
Are you
it, yes.
seconding Councillor Galton's proposal?
Yep.
Yep. So
If there is a proposal, if there is a proposal.
Took advice first before doing that to make sure the officers weren't going to have a hissy fit about what they were being asked to do. But yeah, in view of the head of services comments, then I think that would be a better way forward. And the reason for that is that we do have an extant approval on the site. So we're not talking about no development. We recognise that. It's whether we can basically compromise and find something that addresses the concerns that we've outlined.
So in the avoidance of doubt, it is a formal proposal from you,
Yes,
Councillor
Chair.
Dalton, to defer, seconded by Councillor Moder.
Yes, happy to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll take a vote.
Yes, thanks. So as before, you're voting on deferral. So vote 4 is the vote for deferral. So Councillor Austin,
4.
Councillor Bannister,
4.
Councillor Burrell, Councillor Galton,
4.
Councillor Hollick, Councillor James, Councillor Moder, Councillor Sarfas,
4.
Councillor Scott.
4.
So that is 8 votes in favour of deferment and 1 against. So application is deferred.
Okay, well, thank you, members. Thank you, Alec, for conducting the vote. So there's a little bit of additional work to be done before we can bring it back to the committee. So thank you all very much.
Paper or something.
We'll move on now to agenda item 6, which is the land at the end of Crowfoot Way in Broughton Astley, 25/1236/FUL. Louise Finch is presenting this report. So over to you, Louise.
Thank you, Chair. This is a full planning application for 30 dwellings, including 40% affordable housing on land off Crowfoot Way in Broughton Astley, as shown on your screen. The site forms part of a wider site developed by Lagan Homes for 50 dwellings previously and is accessed through the existing site. The plan shows the approved scheme as set out on page 46 of your report. As noted from the site history, including the layout, the site originally formed part of the informal open space and allotments, with a further area of open space also provided. Hopefully I've got a slide to show that. These are some wider pictures of photos of the site as it is. This is the approved site. So as you can see, this is the area in question. So there was some allotments shown there, but there's a very large area of open space provided. So there was an over provision of open space on the site. And this area doesn't actually form part of the sort of used open space. It's more of an informal open space, which is fenced off at present and not actually used. This is the proposed layout. So as you can see, it's a layout that broadly fits in with the adjoining density and layout of this estate. This area, so I'm just highlighting, is a dismantled railway. There's a buffer along there, and there's a range of affordable housing provided at the top of the site. All technical matters have been addressed, and the scheme shows a mixture of 2 and 3 bedroom dwellings. They're all 2-storey in nature. The officers worked to get an acceptable layout in terms of impact on adjoining properties. And as mentioned, all the technical consultees have been met. Essentially, the scheme is considered to make good use of the land and will bring forward 30 more dwellings in a site that's already got outline consent. Thus, it's recommended for approval subject to the conditions and the Section 106 contribution set out in your report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Louise. There is one speaker on this application, Rhys Bradshaw. Mr. Bradshaw, if you'd like to come to the speaker's table, you will have 3 minutes to speak. There will be a warning given to you with 30 seconds to go. The microphone button is in the base of the microphone stand. So over to you, Mr. Bradshaw.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. This proposal will deliver 30 high-quality new homes comprising an agreed mix of 2, 3, 4 and 5-bedroom dwellings, including 40% affordable housing at a time when the district has a recognised shortage of deliverable housing land. Being smaller in scale, the development is highly deliverable when compared to much larger schemes. It is a logical and sustainable extension to an existing residential area that has been carefully assessed by your officers and is recommended for approval. The site forms part of the wider Broughton Astley Chase development and has previously established the principle of residential development. It adjoins existing housing, is accessed from existing infrastructure and sits within the committed built-up area rather than representing isolated countryside development. Officers conclude that significant weight should be given to the delivery of sustainable new homes in such locations. In terms of highways, although peak time congestion can be experienced, detailed assessment has shown that the additional traffic associated with the proposal can be accommodated safely and efficiently within the existing highway network. The Highway Authority has carefully reviewed the application and has concluded there would be no unacceptable impacts on highway safety or network performance. Drainage and the risk of flooding has generated some concern locally. Again, these concerns have been carefully examined by the LLFA, and we have worked closely with them during their consideration of the application. Following revisions to the drainage strategy, they concluded that the development is acceptable. Mindful of the Council's emerging policy requiring a 20% betterment in runoff, the applicant's consultant has calculated that the scheme would provide a 51% betterment in terms of a 1 in 30 year runoff rate and a 62% betterment in terms of a 1 in 100 year rate. The LLFA has confirmed it has no objection to the subject to the planning conditions as detailed in the report. The county ecologist has concluded there is sufficient information to determine the application. The development secures the required BNG through a mixture of on-site provision and off-site credits purchased from the Habitat Bank, specifically chosen because they have sites registered within the Leicestershire Vales. This scheme delivers meaningful public benefits. It provides 30 much-needed homes, of which 12 will be affordable, alongside new landscaping, public open space, BNG and the full suite of financial contributions as requested by consultees. These are significant benefits that will directly support the local community.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Planning is about balancing competing considerations. In this case, every technical matter has been scrutinised by the relevant experts and none object. Your officers have undertaken the balancing exercise and concluded that the proposal complies with planning policy and that the benefits outweigh the impacts and the planning permission should be granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bradshaw. If you remain at the table, there may be some questions from members of the committee. Councillor Sarfas, you have a question? Can you put your microphone on, please?
It says that it's 40% for affordable houses. So are these houses where people are going to buy these houses completely out, or are these houses half owned by housing association, and that they can pay, say, buy the rest of that in years to come? And is there going to be any problems with lease holders for the future of those for affordable houses?
Thank you, Councillor. As requested by the Council, some of those will be for social or affordable rent and some of those will be for shared ownership. So that's the model that you mentioned just then about the split between owning some of it and renting the other half.
Thank you. Mr. Bradshaw, I've got a couple of questions. And it relates to a time when I was County Councillor for the Broughton Astley Division at Leicestershire County Council. And the concerns that were expressed by residents of Broughton Chase with regard to the long delays of getting the highway in Broughton Chase to an adoptable standard. My question is, what assurance can you give this committee that those delays will not occur should this committee approve this particular application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am aware of delays on the 50 dwelling scheme, and Lagan Homes are acutely aware. They did work closely with the county council to get the highways adopted, and I think now that they're aware of the delays, I don't envisage further delays with this scheme should it be approved.
Thank you. The other concern was in relation to the maintenance of the open space, and there's quite a generous portion of open space on the Broughton Chase development. And I note condition 21 attached to the report with regard to the land management plan. Again, you're probably aware of the concerns about the difficulties with maintenance of the open space. There were some pre-applications discussions about whether Lagan Homes would allow a local authority, whether it's the parish or Harborough, whatever takes the place of Harborough, to adopt the open space. Again, I seek assurances from you that compliance with the condition 21 and an assurance to would-be buyers of this new development, if it does proceed, there will be proper maintenance of the open space.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, we are aware of the issues with the existing open space maintenance. I think those issues have been resolved, but Lagan Homes are acutely aware that they need to up their game on the second phase of development should you approve it. There is a mechanism in the draft, well, there will be a mechanism in the 106 to offer that up to whatever authority is in place before a management company is offered the open space.
Yeah, I'm grateful for those replies. Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions? Councillor Scott?
I think it's difficult on smaller schemes to pepper pot. Housing associations do like them clustered for maintenance purposes. And on a scheme of this size and the shape of the site, it's difficult to do anything else but to cluster them where we can. And I think with a small number of units, that's probably better. They are, yes, yeah. Yeah, the designs are the same.
There doesn't appear to be any other questions, so thank you for your time, Mr. Bradshaw. Appreciate the replies given as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
So if you can leave the table, and then I'll invite committee members to open the discussion. Is there anyone who would wish to go first on this one? Councillor Sarfas.
It's good that they're affordable houses. The issue regarding green open spaces and whether some management company will deal with that, there is always a concern, isn't there, when management companies deal with green open spaces because of the prices that they charge. So that is a concern, but that within the law now, there's not much we can do, is there?
I appreciate what you said. It may be a matter for one of the local authorities to consider in due course. Councillor Austin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Also, just to extend on that, I mean, on the original planning that we were looking at, where these affordable houses have now been placed was where the allotments originally were, which was more part of the previous planning as far as I'm aware. So I'm not quite sure if the rationale was get rid of these in favour of the development of affordable housing, because then that makes the scheme more viable. I would question that rationale, but that's my look on it.
Thank you, councillor Galton.
It's in response to your comment, Chair, about the open space. I was very pleased to hear the agent's response about the 106 and the mechanisms and that they would. And I hope that illustrates that our recently adopted policy on open spaces and going back to an approach of a tiered approach of the first one being the local authority is starting to bite. And if that's going to be the general response from developers, then I think that's extremely good and welcome. And enormous amount of work put in by our officers, particularly Matthew Bills and the director, to get us to that point. But of course, as you rightly indicated, Chair, and this is going to increasingly be the case. Permissions that we give now might not be built until after we've gone. Section 106s might not be negotiated and fully signed off. So we've really got to, going forward, nail down what we are agreeing, because it might not be us that in the end has to deliver it and look and see what was agreed. And I think increasingly we need to be very, very clear what it is we're agreeing, and that the Section 106 specify that, so that, quite frankly, Chairman, it's binding on whoever comes after us.
Absolutely, those are very good points. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. I think perhaps Louise can help here, but there's a comment in here about a scout building, facility for scouts. I just want to put a word in for the Broughton Astley Sea Cadets, because in my last year I spent a number of events there. They're an incredibly enthusiastic group. They've gone through an approval process last year. The Royal Navy has given them a ship name, one of their current ships. So I wouldn't like to think they were missed out on community accommodation, because they are a growing group. I don't know whether Louise has come across them, or I would hope they could share any community facility with the Scouts. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, obviously there will be a community facilities. There's a 35,550 for community facilities. So I guess they'll be able to apply for that in a normal way. But I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, Chairman. Yes.
I appreciate you highlighting that. Fine, David.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to add to the open spaces point that was made earlier by Councillor Galton and by the agent. Councillor Galton was saying that the council's recently, this year, adopted a new open spaces strategy where it set out its desire for parish councils first, district councils second. Those strategies normally have a life of around 5 years. So clearly it's a matter for the new unitary authority. They could choose to review that earlier, but the experience I've had so far in the area is they have 5 years, so that will be till 2031 that strategy would be in place. We can't force developers to do what the agent has suggested he's prepared to do tonight, but I think Councillor Galton's right that policy is now resonating with the developer community, and we're starting to see a change in approach. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, very welcome too. Thank you. Any other comments? No. If we have concluded the discussion, is there a proposal for the committee? Would anyone wish to make a proposal? Councillor Burrell.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy with this. I think it's good use of some land which seems to have fallen outside of use, and obviously the allotments haven't been provided. This is some time ago. I remember the history of this site. It's quite convoluted, isn't it, Louise? So I'm happy to go with the officer's recommendation and recommend approval.
Thank you. Councillor Moder, did you have your hand up?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I was going to say I'm happy to second that proposal as well. And compliments to the applicant. I think this ticks all the boxes in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comment before we proceed to the vote? Nope. Over to you then, Alec.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as before, it's a recorded vote and you're voting on approval of the application. So a vote for is a vote to approve. So Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Bannister.
For.
Councillor Burrell.
For.
Councillor Galton,
4.
Councillor Hollick, Councillor James,
4.
Councillor Moder, Councillor Surface,
4.
and Councillor Scott.
4.
That is 9 votes in favour, none against, so it's approved.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the third of our 4 applications to consider. This is the land to the south of Station Road at North Kilworth. Item 7 on the agenda in our packet. It's at page 153. It's application 25/0153/7/OUT. Louise, you are going to present this report as well.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair said, this is an outline application for residential development to include access only on the eastern side of North Kilworth, as shown on the first slide. The first slide shows the context of the site as you come into North Kilworth from Husbands Bosworth. I'm sure most people have driven past many a time. So you've got the new marina that's been developed, and I'm just highlighting, and then you come in, there's a scattering of dwellings on the right hand side, and then there's one sort of detached property here, and then on both sides are quite a sort of quite rural approach to the village. Members did consider a site at a committee a few months ago, which is, I'm just highlighting that on the screen. It's at the back of the Francis Jackson site that's been developed in North Kilworth. Now these sites, as highlighted in your report, were the one at the front is a site that was allocated in the neighbourhood plan, and the one at the back is a reserve site. So that's the context. These are some photos coming into the site. So the site's just here on your left-hand side. So this is coming into the village. And these are this is the site itself. So hopefully those will refresh your memories of it. This is further overhead that shows the site. So I'm just highlighting that here. And on this, you can see some of the ridge and furrow, which is referred to in your report. This is an indicative plan that shows how the site could be developed by way of the 49 houses or up to 49 houses. So this is the access that is the only matter to be considered in detail at this stage. And obviously, we're looking at whether the principle of development in this location is acceptable. This is a further plan which shows how the site could be developed. As you can see, potentially on here, there's a sort of links going into the adjoining sites, making the site more accessible. So essentially, all technical matters have been addressed adequately, as you'll note from the report. And in this case, as outlined again, officers are giving significant weight to the housing delivery, but consider that the harm to the character of this part of the village outweighs the recognised benefits as set out in your report. So in this case, officers are recommending refusal as set out. Thank you, Chair.
Yep. Thank you, Louise. We have 2 speakers on this application. The first is Rachel Root. Rachel, if you could come to the speakers table, please. You'll see as you settle the microphone and the button on the base of the microphone for you to speak. And if you wouldn't mind just waiting there after you have spoken, just in case there's any questions. And you will be given a 30-second warning of your 3 minutes that has been allocated to allow you to speak, and that time limit will start as soon as you do speak. So, Rachel?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I object to this application, and the reason is just one word: water. This site is directly connected to and butts up against previous applications which run to the boundary of the Millennium Green and our rare, unique wetland nature reserve. Water is at the very heart of this village. It flows in plentiful supply down the track from Cramner Lane, where the pure, sparkling natural water source and a recognised heritage asset along with the spring chambers culminates at the bogs. Natural England and Harborough District Council valued this enough to designate it as a unique, rare wetland nature reserve in 2006. Yet that designation has been overlooked in every previous planning application. The issues and options stage of your own local plan asked in 2024 why our water and nature reserve are overlooked and why public land is allowed to pass into private hands for add-on developments. An independent expert has produced detailed reports on the likely damage to the natural watercourses throughout the parish, but was never given the opportunity to present them to a parish council meeting. That evidence deserves to be heard and understood before any decision is made. There is a second concern. Louise, North Kilworth is not a sustainable village. We have never had a surgery, the village shop closed, and then the post office. Every new household means more cars on our narrow roads. The Millennium Green was hard fought for by this community, and it would be overwhelmed by the footfalls this development would bring all the way from the marina to Cramner Lane. But it is most certainly water I ask you to hold in your minds. Damage to the aquifer, to the wetland and the nature reserve cannot be undone. Once it is lost for good. I would respectfully urge this committee not to overlook it again, because to do so would put something irreplaceable at risk. So I hope the committee will understand the strength of feeling behind this objection, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. If you just remain there, Rachel, we'll just have a check to see if there are any questions from any of the members. I don't see any hands going up. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
And the second speaker is Parish Councillor Michael Southam. Michael, same spiel as before. Yeah, I think you've spoken here before, but you'll get the 30-second warning. And again, if you just remain sitting at the speaker's table after you've finished, so we can just check to see if there's any questions of you before you can return to the public gallery. So we'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. The views I'm putting forward are the views of the Parish Council, arrived at following a public meeting to discuss this application. But I need to say that I also live close to the development. But these views are the views of the Parish Council. I want to make 5 points. The first is about services, similar to the point that Rachel made, and the lack of a shop in particular. North Kilworth is a small village with only a very small shop attached to the petrol filling station. The applicant would have you accept that the previous developments have led to an increase in the services available to the people of the village, but that's not true. There have been 75 new houses in the last 5 years, and there's been no increase, in fact, a reduction in the services available to the people who live there. And there's no reason in my submission to suppose that this additional 49 houses would create an opportunity, a commercial opportunity for there to be a shop or something similar. My second point is related to the numbers of the proposal. The number of houses proposed, 49, in my submission is disproportionate to the size of the village. It's a point that is made by the officers, and I agree with it. It's a view generally held by people in the village. My third point was in our submission to the council in relation to the rural views that you gain from in a village like North Kilworth. You have views of the surrounding countryside, and it's an important element of the amenity of the village. This isn't a town where infill of the type proposed might be expected. This development would deal a final blow to a particularly important rural view. Once removed, it's gone forever. This is a point also made by the officers in their conclusions. My fourth point is simple. The emerging local plan for Harborough envisages not more than 8 new houses for the village. Yet already there has been permission for 35 additional houses in the extension to the Oakridge development. My final point relates to access. Access to the site is on a bend. Everyone in our village agrees it's not safe. And the Highway Authority seems relaxed about it. But I've noted from the comments the officers prepared, two things. Works will be required to the existing hedgerow to make it safe.
Michael, you've gone beyond the 3 minutes now.
Sorry, have I?
Not at all. I think,
I'm sorry.
Well, I've certainly made a note of the 5 points that you addressed, and I'm sure the committee have as well.
Thank you.
Just remain there for a moment. I'll see if anybody does have any questions. Councillor Scott.
I'll ask you, sorry, it's Michael, isn't it? Sorry.
Yes.
Alberto Costa mentions there are long-standing concerns about the sewerage system and the ability to cope. Were you aware, it said it struggled in the past, were you aware of such?
Yes, I'm aware of, we have a flood warden in the village, and he's very active. I have seen correspondence going backwards and forwards between him and Severn Trent. The proposal includes a pumping station, and it is considered that the capacity of the sewage works at the bottom of North Road, as the South Kilworth Road becomes North Road into South Kilworth, is considered to be sufficient. So I don't make that point personally, but I know a lot of people have expressed concern about it, and we have had flooding of sewage in the village.
I'm concerned that Severn Trent have made no mention at all. They often blanket, don't tell us anything on these applications. So I'm not happy with that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Scott. Any other questions? Councillor Sarfaz.
I just want to give you an example. A couple of years ago, near Bitswell, they wanted to build an old people's home, but some of the land of Bitswell was protected land, so they couldn't build it. So what I'm asking you is, this land that you say that is heritage, is it protected land in the same sense as like the view in Bitswell, where there is certain parts of the land that is protected that you can't even develop on?
I don't think it is. There are, in the North Kilworth neighbourhood plan, there are certain rural views which are specifically protected. I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting this is one of them.
Okay, thank you. Doesn't appear to be any other questions. So thank you very much, Mr. Southam. I'll let you return to the public gallery and I don't know if Louise, do you want to make any comment at this stage on the questions and answers before I open it up to the members?
Obviously, it's a good debate in terms of the technical matters, and I know they were raised last time when the reserve site came in. All I can say is that our technical advisors are advising that it's satisfactory. It's obviously an outline scheme, so things such as drainage would be dealt with at a reserve matters stage, the actual detail, but they are satisfied that a satisfactory scheme could be developed, etc. So really, I think officers' main concern, as highlighted, is the impact on the character of the village, as highlighted in the reason for refusal. And obviously that's the decision that members need to make, bearing in mind that it would deliver housing, but is this the right site for further housing in North Kilworth, or would it be to the detriment of the village?
Thank you. And I think in your report you do make mention of the harm to the views towards the conservation area of North Kilworth.
Yes, but it's more the overall character of the village. I don't think we would be refusing it for harm to the character of the conservation areas per se. It's more that this area does form an important part between two conservation areas, the canal and the main conservation area of the village. And it's when you drive into the village, it is viewed as a more rural approach to the village and considered important.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sarfraz, you want to start us off?
Yeah, the 106 money, I just wanted to ask them over in the corner there without being rude, because I forget names, I'm not very, so I apologise. The 106 money says one for schools and one for GP. Was that consulted to the people in the actual village of what money for 106 was asked for?
We consult the Leicestershire County Council and in terms of Section 106 requirements. So for example, the Education Authority will comment on how many places they need for schools, and the education contribution relates to that, and the GP surgeries is the same.
It's coming back, sorry. So basically that was all the 106 money for that development? I mean, it's only a small development, so you wouldn't expect that much, would you, for 47 houses?
Well, I mean, the Section 106 requirements are what's been asked for. That's what's been requested by the relevant people, consultee.
Thank you, Councillor Sarfraz and Louise, for those comments. Does anybody? Yes, Councillor Hollick.
I think, yes, part of our responsibility is housing, but I also think part of our responsibility is the environment and the community that we live in. And I think some very good points have been made by the speakers, and I really believe we have to protect areas where especially the officers are asking us to. And as far as I'm concerned, I would object to this application.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Austin?
Yeah, thank you. Much in line with what Councillor Hollick said. I think we hear on virtually every application that the council hasn't got a 5-year plan in place for housing stock, and they use that as the main point why we should look and approve these sort of applications. But I agree entirely with what Councillor Hollick said. And I said it's the local environment that we should be taking into consideration here, and how that would detract away from its natural surroundings. And so, I'd be happy to vote against any development on this site.
Thank you. Councillor Burrell.
Thank you, Chair. It was a very good balanced report. And as Louise said, excuse me, the statutory consultees have nothing against it generally. But I think in this instance, I completely agree with what the officer says. And we really have a responsibility to protect this final bit of open countryside between two conservation areas, the conservation area of the village and the conservation area of the canal, which is also, which we usually forget is a conservation area, but it actually is. So in this instance, I'm very happy to propose refusal of the application in accordance with what the officer has proposed.
Thank you very much. And I have noted in the report about the allocations, first in the North Kilwood Neighbourhood Plan and the Emerging Harbour Local Plan. And I think it's fair to say that North Kilworth has already provided more than what was originally allocated. This is an opportunity to protect some open and verdant open space between these two conservation areas. So I think I would also be supporting the officer's recommendation. Did you make a formal proposal? Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Hollick. Does anybody else wish to make any comment before we proceed to the vote? No. Over to you, Alec, to take the recorded vote, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as before, it's a recorded vote. And on this vote, you're voting on refusal of the application. So a vote for is a vote to refuse and a vote against is a vote against refuse. So, Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Bannister.
For.
Councillor Burrell.
For.
Councillor Galton. For. Councillor Hollick. Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Moder. Councillor Sarfas.
For.
Councillor Scott. That is 9 votes for refusal, therefore the application is refused unanimously.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to item 8 on the agenda. This is application 25/01615/OUT, an outline application for about 130 homes on land east of Zouch Way in Bushby, page 197 in our agenda pack. And Christy Ingles is going to present this report. Over to you, Christy.
Thank you. Before I start my presentation, I just want to note an error in the supplemental report, and thank you, Councillor Burrell, for noticing. There is a slight error in the supplemental report around the numbering of the conditions. So the noise mitigation condition is stated in the supplemental reports as 23. It's not, it's number 25. So I just want to bring that to your attention, and I apologise for that error. The planning application is for up to 130 dwellings, and the site itself is on the edge of Bushby, and it consists of 2 field parcels with adjoining land. The first field parcel directly adjoins the A47 to the south, and it slopes in a northerly direction down into the valley towards an unnamed watercourse which runs into Thurmby Brook. Both fields are currently in pasture. The Zouch Way and the Bushby Fields development, which has been completed, is located to the west of the site. The northern parcel of the land off the Zouch Way has an existing play area, and that adjoins the application site. West of the northern parcel are existing dwellings on Harcourt Grove and Zouche Way. The council has also granted planning permission for a Lidl store on the southwestern edge of the site, and works have commenced on site. The scheme comprises up to 130 dwellings, and it has been submitted in outline form. It does include associated public open space and sustainable drainage systems, and an indicative master plan accompanies the planning application. So the application doesn't seek approval for the master plan, which is on the screens, but what it does is it gives an indication of how the site could come forward. It also demonstrates that the amount of development that is proposed could be accommodated on the site. The master plan shows the development parcels for the site and key access points for vehicles, which includes a new access onto Uppingham Road, and how 2 new vehicular access points onto Zouche Way and 1 onto Harcourt Grove could be provided. Only the detail of the access onto Uppingham Road has been submitted for approval at this stage. I've then got some photographs of the site for members. There are further photographs that are included within the committee report. So the first 2 are taken from Google Street View, but they're very recent, from March of this year. The top photograph shows from the A47 Uppingham Road, looking towards the site, and the site is on the right of the photograph. And the bottom photograph there, again from Google Street View, is from the A47, and it's from the junction of the A47 with Zouche Way, looking down into the Zouche Way development. And you've got the application site towards the right-hand side of the photograph, but the Lidl store would be located there on the corner. The next photographs are submitted by the applicant in their landscape assessment. First photograph is showing the site, again close to the access of the Zouche Way existing development, with the A47 looking down towards the site. Then at the bottom we have further into the site, and again looking, this time the application site is towards the left of the site, beyond the trees and the hedgerow. We're further down Zouche Way in the next photograph at the top, and that is looking towards the bottom parcel within the site, which you can see is quite a level area. And the bottom photograph is showing the site from a long range view, from the closest public footpath, and in the distance, towards the middle of the photograph, is the existing Zouche Way development. So you can see it is quite a distance photograph, that one. In terms of the vehicular access onto Uppingham Road, the A47, this would be the primary access into the site. Of course, the A47 classified road, subject to a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. The applicant proposes a new priority T junction with a ghost right turn facility as the point of access from Uppingham Road. So in terms of the application, all technical matters have been addressed to the satisfaction of technical consultees. Conditions and developer contributions are required to mitigate the impacts, and they are as set out in the report. The report sets out the planning balance which has been undertaken by officers informing the recommendation, and the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christy. We have one speaker in respect of this application. That's Chloe French for the agent. And Chloe, if you'd like to come forward. And appreciate that you will have 3 minutes to speak. You'll be given a 30-second warning before those 3 minutes are up. You'll appreciate the microphone button and the base of your microphone stand. And the time will begin as soon as you start speaking. And finally, if you just remain seated at the table after you have finished speaking, just to check to see if any committee members have got questions. Thank you. Over to you, Chloe.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of this application. In short, this is a policy-led, sustainable scheme that will help meet an identified housing need, deliver affordable homes, secure local investment, and protect key landscape features that define this edge of village location. The application has no statutory consultee objections, and we have actively engaged throughout the planning process, including through the emerging local plan, pre-application discussions, consultation with local residents. As a result, the scheme has evolved to respond to the comments and incorporate changes where possible. The scheme will deliver up to 130 dwellings, including 52 affordable homes. The scheme provides a practical and policy-aligned opportunity to help address the shortfall in housing land supply by demonstrating that the proposed TB1 allocation can come forward in a deliverable form. The scheme has been sensitively developed to retain the site's high-quality natural features, including the protected trees and established hedgerow along the eastern boundary. The layout also retains a soft gateway into the village by setting development back from the A47 and using the landscape features to provide an appropriate transition between the settlement edge and the surrounding countryside. It is a sustainable development on the edge of Leicester, with good access to local facilities and existing public transport links into the city and the surrounding area, helping new residents make everyday journeys without relying solely on the private car. The transport assessment demonstrates that the scheme can be accommodated on the existing highway network without causing severe impact or unacceptable delays for the existing residents. It will make important contributions towards the enhancement of local facilities as established by the heads of terms for the Section 106, enabling the benefits of the development to be shared with the wider community. For these reasons, we respectfully ask councillors to support their officer's recommendation and approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. If you just remain there for a moment, I'll just double check to see. Oh, we've got a couple of hands over here, one over there. I think Councillor Hollick, I saw you first.
One of the things that was brought to my notice by a resident was the ridge and furrow. And I've noticed that you've taken that into consideration and that you are going to protect some part of that. But the other thing that was highlighted to me were badgers. And I wonder, having read this, that the developer is thinking of creating one badger set, but apparently there are more than one badger set. Do you know how many badgers there actually are on the site, how many sets there are, and what are you going to do about it?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I read this report earlier today, and at the time when it was undertaken, which was the end of last year now, I think, there was one main badger set which had various holes. There was an outlier set which they thought was perhaps not used because it was surrounded by cobwebs and leaves, and then there was another set that was off-site. So in total, 2 sets. I can't count the badgers, but 2 sets, one off-site, one on-site.
If I can come back, yes. I mean, can I ask the officers a question? Are badgers protected?
Christy may assist.
Yes, badgers are protected.
Okay. Badgers are protected and the developers come up with one new set. And we've now established that there's more than one. So are you going to encompass how you're going to deal with the second one within the development?
Yes, there is a condition attached to the permission which would have to assess the badgers at the time and provide an appropriate strategy for dealing with them, be that move them off site, move development back, or whatever it is at that point. So that would be fully assessed and fully addressed as a
Okay.
protected species.
Thank you. If I can come back
Yes.
to the officer again, now we know that there are 2 sets. Will that be in the conditions of the actual planning permission?
So the application is accompanied by a badger survey. That's not been published on the website because of the protection that badgers have. And the report fully looks at and assesses all the different sets and the outlier sets. So the report that's been commissioned by the applicant, it talks about the primary set, the outlier set, and also the badgers that are off-site. And it includes mitigation measures within it. And there is a mechanism that is included as mitigation, which is that the primary badger set will be very close to the development. And it is important during the construction of the development, during the lifetime of the development, that those badgers are able to have the environment and the habitat that they need. And Natural England has a mechanism of licensing where it will take an application for a license from a landowner, which will involve the creation of a new, they call it an artificial badger set. I don't particularly like that phrasing myself, because the idea behind it, of course, is that the badgers move into that new set. So around this development and through the planning conditions, there is a whole lot of protection for those badgers, including beyond the planning system in terms of their protection through Natural England. There are conditions recommended. The county ecologists have looked at this application in detail, and they are satisfied that the mitigation that is being proposed by the applicant's consultant is appropriate, subject to the licence that would be needed for the works in relation to proximity to badgers through Natural England. And the conditions that we've recommended in the report are those conditions that the ecologists have asked for to ensure the protection of those badgers. Lots of thoughts gone into it in this case.
Thank you, and thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Another question, you referenced, sorry, moving on from badgers, as important as they are to us, the local consultations you had with regard to this development. What major changes have you made as a result of those particular consultations?
Thank you, Councillor. We have increased the amount of footpaths on site. We've increased the amount of footpaths along the A47. Although internal changes, as the officer says, that it's in outline, so they're not considered at this point. But we have done additional investigations into, for example, ecology. We have changed the drainage strategy to increase the attenuation ponds, and that's, I think, the main points.
Okay, and those were the main points raised at those consultations, were they? You've not, it's just being rude to you, but they're not tinkered around the edges there. They were the main things that were brought up.
Yeah, we believe so. Anything within our power, we have tried to accommodate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor James. Councillor James,
Right,
Councillor
thank you.
Galton and Councillor Southwest on my list.
Thank you. Yeah, Chloe, we've got an existing development there, of course, and this new development runs down on the other side. The existing development is on the west side, isn't it? And this is on the east side. Now, quite recently, we approved the Lidl store there, and I can't see a connection between the existing development and these two new developments. So let's imagine I live in the new development nearer the A47, and I want to visit the Lidl store. Does it mean I have to come out onto the A47, turn right, go past the little store, and then turn right again to go into the store? Am I correct there, or I'm not correct? I'm just looking at the traffic flow.
I think there are good links. I'm just trying to find my plan.
I'm just concerned, you see, if residents want to go to that store and they have to come out on the A47, go along a bit, because the A47 is a very dangerous road.
No,
Is there a link road? Okay, there is a link road in the side.
a footpath that runs sort of around the edge of the
Okay,
line,
so
and then internal roads.
okay, so
which-
there's another way. Okay, I couldn't see that that was a connection. Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Galton.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So yes, what I'd like to ask is, obviously, when you started out on the design and the parameters, the little wasn't approved, but now it is. So I'd like to understand what changes you've made in order to take into account that the little is a feature there now. In fact, obviously, as you'll be aware, it's under construction. And this land to the right, then, you're saying that to the east of the little wouldn't have any development on it, what you envisage for that land. But could I ask that in light of the little being approved and your comment about keeping that open and undeveloped is kind of undermined by the fact the little is there. So I just wondered how you felt about the existence of the little and what changes you've had to make to the master planning.
Thank you, Councillor. I think it's important to understand that when we were developing this master plan, we knew that the Lidl was putting an application in, and therefore they were considered at the same time rather than concurrently as they've appeared at planning committees. In terms of the land to the east, this is the area where the council's heritage team are seeking to have the ridge and furrow retained in situ, and therefore we would put we'd like to put some information boards. We'd like to make a bit more of a feature of that ridge and furrow, explaining what it is and why it's there.
Okay, that's really helpful to understand that, because through your check, referring to a letter that members have received from the Thurnaby and Bushby Society, which I think one of the other members received, which you'll be familiar with, they raise concerns about the impact on the ridge and furrow, but obviously that's referring to a different part of the ridge and furrow. But they particularly talk about the views from the orchard area in the current development in the Bloor Homes and looking out of that. So, you know, what we're not being asked to approve the master plan or the layout tonight. And in fact, there's a condition precisely saying that. But I'm just wondering what's informed, you know, that master planning process. And do you think there could be more scope to address those concerns by the society about those quite important impacts and the ridge and furrow there and the old railway line?
Thank you. I think both the railway line and the ridge and furrow have been addressed within this version of the master plan. I think in terms of the views in the letter by Mrs. Lord and Thurnaby Bushby Society, I think that the levels are quite different there, and I don't see that there would be a massive visual impact in terms of that road linking the two parcels of the site. Obviously, this would be an issue that we'd look at very carefully at the reserve matters and would be further informed by highways input and, you know, technical input as well. You know, there might have to be some changes in terms of drainage strategies and whatnot. We're confident this is a way that this application could come forwards, but it doesn't mean it will come forwards in this form.
Question, could I do you intend to be involved in the reserve matters then? Because you know there's two options, isn't there? Either you market the site and sell it off to Joe Bloggs, or you stay involved in that process in order to have some control over what it looks like in the end.
I think it would be very difficult for us not to be involved. You know, we farmed here for decades, and you know, we're proud of what we've done in the area, and we would always have a say.
That's right. I've got one other. Where's the BNG? Is it going to be on site or off site?
So we're looking at off-site, but within the same land. So the Scrapped Off Neighbourhood Plan identified an area of land that they like to see as part of their BNG strategy, and we would like to bring those forwards together. That is something that we're working on, and obviously, you know, need various landowners' permissions and owners' permissions and everything else, but that is how we would see that coming forwards.
Thank you. Councillor Sarfas.
Hello. On page 202 in the document regarding flooding, there must be, for me, a flooding day of documents. It says there that in 2014, the High Court confirmed regarding flood risk and refusal of planning permission. So do you think since 2014 that the complete risks of flooding and from as what it says concerning drainage as well, that's been dealt with?
Thank you, Councillor. I certainly think we've moved on a little bit from that point in time. This scheme, as is laid before you, is designed to the next level of surface water flooding in terms of the plus 20% greenfield runoff that is proposed by the emerging local plan rather than the existing one. So we are looking to the future, and those are standards that we would hope we would meet.
Any further questions for Mrs. French? No? Well, thank you for your patience and your contributions, and you may return to the public gallery, and the committee will now have a discussion on the report and its recommendations, and I invite councillors to come forward. Who would like to start us off, please? Councillor Galton, thank you.
Chair, it's difficult to divorce this site from the emerging plan, but of course we're not allowed to give very much weight to it at the moment. But it's fair to say that this plan has come through that process and has been assessed as such. And, you know, this is the area, the outcome of that, where the housing requirement is proposed to be. So from that point of view, it does tick those boxes. But of course, we're looking at it tonight in the basis of the current and the fact we don't have a 5-year supply. I think the granting of the Lidl has had an impact. They're there now, the construction's taking place, and can't deny that, you can't divorce that. So I personally, I haven't got a problem with the principle of it. But members, as I questioned the applicant, have received, I think, some quite interesting, important points to be raised by the Fernby and Bushby Society regarding the master planning and the layout and why it has to be like this. So, for example, does this road that's going to go right through the site, does it have to go all the way through to the second parcel? Would it not be possible to serve the second parcel from the existing development to the west, the Harcourt Road? I don't know the answer to that. There might be technical reasons why it has to do that, but it seemed to me that all these things could be further explored through the master planning process. I did take advice from the case officer, and having regard to what we spoke about earlier about trying to future-proof things, perhaps we could put an additional note on to make it absolutely clear that we're not proving and that there are issues that still need to be further discussed. What I hadn't appreciated is that it's proposed until the applicant explained that one of the ridge and furrow areas to be retained is to the east of the Lidl. And I think that's important. We probably need to feed that back to the society, that is being retained, even though not all of it's being retained. So I think we are where we are with it, and I think as long as the dialogue can go on, I'm very pleased to hear that the applicant wishes to be involved going forward into the next stages and have some control over that, because all too often these sites then get sold off to Joe Bloggs, housing builder, and then there's no further input into it. So that's a good thing. My only other comment I'd make is regarding contributions to off-site formal recreation facilities and built facilities and so on. And you know, that the way that's unfortunately usually done is through off-site contributions. I do think there's, going back to the master planning, there is some scope to look to what more can be done on site. I would remind the applicants that what was done on the other side to the east is that the football pitch, they were asked to provide that in another piece of land and not just give us money, because it's always difficult to provide these things. So I think there's some further discussions, but that again is for another day, because we could hopefully do that through the 106 discussions. So, you know, provided that we're absolutely clear that we're not tying down and it's not proposed to tie down this master plan, that those discussions can be ongoing. I recognise that you know, we need to make progress on getting our housing numbers up so that we can get back into control.
You make valuable points, Councillor Galton. Thank you for that. And just as a side on the Ridge and Furrow area, I was encouraged by what Mrs. French said, particularly in relation to the information boards that may help inform those that will be moving to this particular area, should we approve the application. Are there any other questions? Councillor Sarfas.
Again, yes, we want to build houses, but again, we're having got issues regarding flooding and draining issues, as what the High Court stated in its decision in 2014. We need to see much stronger action taken when we're building houses, and there seems to be a weak kind of argument that, yeah, we'll build drainage, we'll do this, we do that. We need to see stronger policies to make sure where there is flooded land that, you know, obviously, otherwise we might as well build Noah's Ark houses instead of building normal houses. And again, we still come into the issue regarding flooding issues and still don't see it dealt with. And also the Water Board don't seem to take the concern as what public would concern. Obviously in this, there's nothing major we can do, but it would be good to see them to put more stricter policies regarding flooding in, as this has a high risk of flooding. That's my concern.
Well, thank you very much for that, Councillor. Councillor Scott? You mind, I'll just ask Chrissy just to make comment before I call on you, Councillor.
I just want to clarify about the 2014 High Court decision that's been referenced. So that was included in a representation from a member of the public, and it was a general point that they were making. Of course, you've only got the summary in front of you on page 201 of the report, not the detail of what they said. The court judgment that they were referring to was not about this site. It was a general matter about somewhere else in the country, and that where the court apparently concluded that flood risk can justify refusal of planning permission, which is technically correct. But just to clarify, it's not specifically about this site.
And there are no technical objections from the Flood Authority here. Is there? Thank you. Councillor Skelton.
Thank you, Chair. I understand it's a master plan, so it could be subject to quite a few changes. But looking at there is please correct me, people around the table, the access in from the A47 apart from Zouche Way that's being shown on the master plan. Is there any danger of the existing developments trying to weave their way through that way and making a rat run out onto the A47? Is that likely to happen, or?
Christy, do you want to make comment?
Yes, we want residents to do that. So it is designed in a way that provides linkages through between the sites. In terms of the emerging policy in the emerging local plan, that includes elements there that say that this development should link in with the existing development. So what has been proposed on the master plan is roads and footpath linkages between the two sites so that they are amalgamated into one. In terms of the Lidl store, it just has its vehicular access from Zouche Way. But for the residents that live on there, it is absolutely expected that the new residents, should this get permission, will use at some times the existing access, the point that's on Zouche Way onto the A47, and at other points may use the other access. So it creates, for the existing residents of Zouche Way, it's creating them to have 2 points of access onto the A47, which I feel is a positive, and the highways are satisfied that the detailed design is acceptable.
The design, sorry, can I come back? Design isn't quite here yet with master plan, so you've got no idea of the road widths, have you?
So the application, when the details come forward, we will be consulting with the Highway Authority. So the roads are going to be designed to be to adoptable standard and to accord with the requirements of Leicestershire County Council.
So I'm just concerned for the safety aspect for having another access out, but you're trying to put houses close to that road, children playing. Pedestrian areas off of there, that risk element.
It's exactly the same situation as you have currently with the access that the houses on Zouche Way have got, in that those houses, there are many that front onto Zouche Way. Across Zouche Way, there is the play area. The Highway Authority have looked at it from a risk assessment point of view, and they are satisfied that the proposal can be designed to meet their requirements and their standards.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Hollick.
I realise that this application is in the very early stages and there is a lot more to come. I would like to say that I feel so far the developer has tried to meet some of the needs of the residents, and I think we should accept that as regards the ridge and furrow, and one would hope that the developer would continue to try and meet the needs of the people within the local vicinity. I don't see any reason at this stage why we should reject this application.
Looks like we've exhausted the discussion. Does anybody, I'll get one last opportunity to anyone before we consider a proposal. Councillor Hollick.
Yeah, I propose that we accept this application.
The proposal is to approve the application as set out in the officer's recommendation, subject to the conditions. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Austin? You're nodding, but for the sake of the record, could you just confirm that you do second?
Yes, Chair. I'll second.
Thank you.
Chair, could I just inquire that the proposer and seconder are willing to accept that note that I referred to, which makes it clear that we are wish to have ongoing discussions regarding the master planning and layout, that we're not
You
approving.
prepared to accept that?
Yes.
As part of the proposal, and councillor Austin is nodding. So you have that consent, councillor Galton. And I see the officers are furiously making a note of that as we speak. Does anybody wish to add anything before we proceed to the vote? No? Over to you, Alec, for the vote.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as before, you're voting to approve the application. So vote of 4 is to approve. Starting with councillor Austin.
4.
Councillor Bannister.
4.
Councillor Burrell.
4.
Councillor Galton.
4.
Councillor Hollick.
4.
Councillor James.
4.
Councillor Moda. Councillor Sarfas.
4.
And Councillor Scott. That is 9 votes in favour, none against. It's carried unanimously.
Not being notified of any urgent business, but to close the business of the planning committee, and time is 8:40. Well, 8:45. Committee has thank you.